Good afternoon, and welcome to the webinar, Unlocking the Full Potential of Home Care and Remote Medical Monitoring for Chronic Conditions, sponsored by Biote with OmniSense and MedCity News. I'm Stephanie Baum, Director of Special Projects for MedCity News. The rise of the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the need for remote care and patient monitoring that goes beyond the four walls of a healthcare provider. In this webinar on remote monitoring of chronic conditions, the conversation will explore how OmniSense, a medical device manufacturer in the area of home health tracking, is using Biote's connected care platform to support home care and remote patient monitoring. The combined system enables the connection of patients to caregivers by enhancing telemedicine calls, spotting warning signs earlier, triggering timely interventions, and reducing the need for hospitalization. Our speakers today include Daniel Adler, co-founder and CEO of Biote Medical. With over 20 years of extensive experience in the IT and Internet of Things fields, Daniel Adler uses his deep understanding of connectivity to build cloud solutions for medical Internet of Things devices. As the CEO of Biote, he manages the teams that develop cloud-based connectivity and connected care solutions for medical device and pharma companies. Previously, he managed the automotive business unit at Valens, a leading semiconductor company in the area of high-speed connectivity. Prior to Valens, Daniel was Vice President of Sales and Business Development at 3i Mind. He also served as Director of Business Development and Strategic Accounts at NICE Systems, in charge of worldwide key accounts. Daniel holds a Bachelor of Science in Computers from the Technion Israel Institute of Technology. Welcome, Daniel. Ian Solomon. Ian, thank you. Ian Solomon is a serial entrepreneur in the medical device and drug delivery fields. Prior to co-founding OmniSense, he co-founded Timestamp, which developed a connected solution for monitoring drug adherence, especially for inhalers. Previously, he was a co-founder of electronic patch pump company SteadyMed, which was sold to United Therapeutics for $216 million. Before his involvement in the medical world, Ian worked for over 20 years in information systems and communications in a range of technical and marketing positions. Ian holds a Bachelor of Science in Physics from Sussex University in the UK. Welcome, Ian.
Thanks very much, Stephanie.
And last but not least, we have Jack Mark, who is a serial entrepreneur specializing in the med tech sector. He founded Mobile Heartbeat in 2009, creating the gold standard collaborative mobile application for acute care facilities. The company was acquired in 2016 by HCA, the largest integrated delivery network in the US. Subsequently, Jack is active as a Mass Challenge mentor and judge, while also participating in several angel investment groups and helping startups with sales strategies. Jack recently joined Biote as director for the US division. Welcome to the panel, Jack.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Great. Now, before we get started, I just want to give out some housekeeping for our audience. You will be part of the conversation for this event, because not only are you invited to ask questions throughout this event, which you can enter in the Q&A box in the lower left side of the screen, and which our panelists will address in the last 10 minutes of the webinar, but also you will be asked to respond to a few polls we will be doing throughout this discussion. So without further ado, let's get to the panelists. Daniel, could you give an overview of Biote?
Sure. So hi, everyone, and allow me to share with you a few words about Biote before we start. Biote is a connected care platform which enables medical devices to be connected securely to a regulated cloud environment while supporting patient collaboration and engagement workflows, and at the same time enables care providers to take action based on insights derived from the collected data. With offices in Boston, US, and Hanover, Germany, and an R&D center in Israel, we are focusing our activities around remote and home care in both the US and Europe. Our customers vary from disruptive medical device startups as OmniSense, via legacy and tier one medtech and pharma companies, and up to caregivers and HMOs.
Thank you, Daniel. And now, Ian, could you introduce OmniSense?
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. And hello, everybody. As Omnisense has built a telehealth system, and we're a customer of BioTE, so it sits on top of their platform. It's a telehealth system for the mass market, which includes a very unique device and app and a back end, and it's basically addressing the mass market and the major issues faced by a lot of people who are elderly and chronically ill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ian. And now, Daniel, how did BioTE and Omnisense begin to work together?
We actually met Omnisense in a similar event to this one a couple of years ago, where they were looking for a partner to help them realize the healthcare tracking at home concept that they will talk about later on. They looked at an experienced company with an off-the-shelf product, and which can get them to the market quickly with minimal risks and efforts, and we actually managed to address those requirements and needs, and I'm sure that Ian will speak about it later on.
Okay, thank you. And now, Jack, why did you decide to join BioTE?
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the audience for attending this webinar. I love this space. I can't think of anything more satisfying than using technology to save lives.
That's a great point. Thank you, Jack. And now let's I'll just give an overview of the agenda for this webinar. Here are some of the points that we're going to highlight: remote home care and its benefits, connected medical devices at the front of remote patient monitoring, why they are a missing link, remote care adoption barriers for medical device ecosystems, and 4 main challenges and how to overcome them. And then last but not least, we'll address how Omnisense enables caregivers and healthcare providers to treat their patients remotely. I'd like to turn the questions to Daniel and Ian. How do you see remote patient monitoring is changing healthcare? On a day-by-day basis, how do you see remote patient monitoring evolving? And how do you anticipate what it will look like in 10 years from now?
So there is a big gap between what people believe and what is actually being done, and it's totally not surprising to see a poll where we see that most physicians believe that remote care will play a major role in caregivers and patients' life in the future, because the benefits of for both sides is clear, and when it comes to the ability to provide better and continuous treatments regardless to the physical location of the caregiver of the patient, and while being able to reduce dramatically the cost of treatment, it makes a lot of sense to initiate home care and remote care in higher pace. However, the involvement of remote patient monitoring and its adoption depends on many factors, which we'll talk about during this session, and they are not that straightforward and easy to cope with.
Okay, and Ian?
Yeah, I agree with Daniel. I think it's going to be a huge phenomenon. Remote care really is the future. And I think there'll be a number of different approaches in parallel. I think there'll be some more general solutions which are for, people who are elderly, or even for occasional users who get sick a few times a year. And there'll be other solutions which are specialist solutions with highly specialized devices for specific diseases. That'll be my guess.
Okay, thank you. Now, Jack, what is the long-term goal of the remote patient monitoring marketplace, in your opinion?
I think right now we're looking at adherence, but obviously the long-term goal is reimbursement. Telemedicine is doing that today, but RPM is not there, but that's the direction we're heading into.
Okay. All right. Now, Daniel, could you address the missing link, the difference between telemedicine to real-time monitoring?
Yeah, so coming from the area of connectivity of medical devices, we see that most remote care solutions today are missing this important link in the chain, which is the ability of patients to share on top of their personal feedbacks, critical and accurate measurements of their vital signs. For example, think of how many cardiologists today actually get a reliable, continuous automatic reading of patient vital signs or any signs, even of basic elements like body weight. Both cardiologists and chronic heart patients, for example, know that gaining 2 pounds in 2 days is too much, and that this is a critical symptom that can indicate serious deterioration in their heart condition. And while any of us can buy a $20 connected scale at Amazon, still, how many doctors are actually connected and can monitor the reading of such devices? Most of them will actually have to call to the patient to remind him or her to get weighted and send them the results in offline. So basically, there are some connected solutions today, like patches and sensors that know how to read and send basic signals such as ECG. However, in most cases, they only monitor in a closed system a single parameter out of about 20 different parameters that cardiologists need in order to get good and accurate picture of the patient. So the main question to address is why we don't see proliferation of medical devices that are being used by caregivers and patients at home or remotely and that are connected.
Okay, well said. Now we're going to have a second poll, looking at what do you see as the biggest challenge for introducing remote care out of the following options? And we'll just wait a few seconds for the audience to respond. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds. And okay, I think we've got the responses. Jack, what do you make of the results?
So it's interesting. One of the things I always said that to create simple user interfaces is the hardest thing. And until we are able to, and that's what we're trying to do, by the way, is to create very simple and, find the caregivers and the user's journey so that it's not painful. Right now, it's still very difficult. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges in this space is to make a user interface that is actually usable. So I think that's a valid point. I think also the business incentive issue, although it's a smaller one, that's where reimbursement comes in. But I think the user adoption has to do with the quality of the solutions that are out there.
Okay. Now, we are seeing a phenomenon where medical device companies are afraid to make the move to the cloud. There's no doubt that COVID-19 has given a boost to remote care, but still many companies are having a hard time developing connected medical solutions, and it can take them many years to bring a solution to the market. Daniel, from your experience working with many companies, can you tell us what are the main remote care adoption barriers for the medical device ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. And I think that also the people in the poll actually got to the same conclusions that and experience that we see, and we'll talk about them in this slide. So the barriers for remote care adoption of medical devices are an outcome of several challenges. Firstly, most medical device companies are hardware-oriented, with little knowledge in areas such as IoT, cloud, cybersecurity, privacy, UI, UX, user experience, and AI. Second, they are used to build medical devices for professionals to operate. And when it comes to remote care and home care, normally the patient is the one that needs to operate the device. And this is not a trivial at all. For example, it is one thing to perform an ultrasound check by a technician in a clinic, and it's a totally different story if now you want the patient to do the same test at home. You are replacing someone with tens of years of experience in average in ultrasound diagnostics with a pregnant woman at home or her husband to perform the test, while none of them are even experts in diagnostic or ever did this test before. And last, once you start to collect data from many patients at home in a continuous manner, you also start to collect tons of info that you need to process, filter, analyze, disseminate. It is not that trivial task to identify the critical info out of the mass amounts of collected data and stored data. So yeah, the barriers is how the caregivers and the patients will adopt such solutions. That's definitely the key part. And of course, we didn't talk about it here, but regulation is a major aspect. And we'll talk about it in the next slides.
Okay. Now, Ian, how do you estimate the investment of a medical device company in the non-core competencies? How much time and effort can a company spend on connecting their device to the cloud?
Well, I would say that companies such as ours making a telehealth system would want to spend most of their time actually working on our own product and on the back end and on the usability and on the algorithms. And to the extent that it's possible to simply sit on top of someone else's platform, because most such companies just don't have the experience in the cloud and all the security issues. So that's definitely the preferable route, and that's the route that we have chosen here.
So basically, maybe to recap and start before getting into the first challenge, we see it as continuous investment in non-core competencies. Let's first talk a bit about connectivity and cloud domains. What does it really mean when talking about connected care with relation to healthcare? So technologies that relate to medical data collection, processing, and sharing are evolving endlessly. They are coming from other domains, and the medical domain is actually utilizing them. On the connectivity side, you constantly need to adopt as a medical device vendor to new technologies such as Bluetooth Low Energy, NFC, Wi-Fi, and new generations of cellular networks. Then you need also to adopt to different connectivity protocols such as HTTP or RTP. I hope I'm not using too many dirty words here, but it's a lot of things that are really on core aspects of communication and data transfer that you need to master. And then you also need to make sure that you're using the right and most up-to-date cloud features and resources. So the cloud became also a very big know-how domain, and they are changing almost on a daily basis. And most of the technologies that were being used in the cloud only 5 years ago are no longer relevant. So these are things that you need to be aware of, and also in the future, they will definitely change in the same pace. And of course, even in the healthcare domain, you need to cope with new and constant changing standards such as FHIR and others. So this eventually has two major outcomes. First, its connectivity and cloud technologies are becoming a significant challenge from time to market and cost point of view. And then, not only that, but also the ongoing operational costs that relate to those domains and maintaining them, because things are changing constantly, and to be able to be up to date requires significant efforts throughout the lifetime of the connected care solution. So I'll just give you an example of what is the impact of introducing connectivity to new medical devices, which can impact dramatically the cost and efforts. So if a medical device company, for example, decides to connect their device via an internal cellular modem dongle, they will have to medically certify this device almost in each and every country they choose to operate in. This is because of EMC perspective, because this modem now starts to transmit data and might affect the operation of the medical device or other devices which are in nearby area. And this gains in it or holds in it a lot of efforts and resources that you need to invest. By the way, if you choose to use an existing Bluetooth interface, for example, and utilize a mobile phone as the gateway, this process is not required at all. So it's really important to understand what are your goals and what are the options in front of you when it comes to connectivity and what are the outcomes in order to choose the right one to use. And eventually, the most effective way to overcome those challenges of connectivity and investment in non-core competencies is basically to utilize an off-the-shelf connected care platform that actually inherently supports all of the relevant technologies, protocols, and APIs. So basically, it's like a black box for the medical device, while making sure it provides constant updates to comply with the ongoing changes in this space. So now, when talking about the second challenge that we see, it's around the data privacy and security concerns. And basically, it means that you need to constantly comply with both privacy regulations and cybersecurity threats. Also, in this case, it's an ongoing challenge that continues way beyond the launch of the product or the service. This is due to the fact that privacy regulations continue to develop and change, and of course, security threats are only worsening with time. So the way to cope with both privacy and cybersecurity challenges is, again, to utilize a platform which offloads from the medical device company or from the healthcare provider or the caregiver, the liability on the data transmission and storage parts. And at the same time, it supports seamless updates to comply with the changes in regulation and cybersecurity threats. And here also, I'll give you an example. When you plan to introduce a new service in a country such as Germany, you need to make sure that such expansions will be done in a seamless manner and will not require any changes in the solution. This is, of course, a challenge since in practice, it means that the connected care platform will have to run on a local instance at one of the public cloud facilities in Germany. If it's AWS, for example, it's in Frankfurt. And this is due to the need to comply with the local privacy regulations, which state that patient data of German citizens will be stored only inside the physical borders of Germany.
Okay. Now, Ian, I know that data privacy and cybersecurity are major concerns for medical device companies. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a major concern, and if indeed we as a startup would try to develop the complete device-to-cloud infrastructure that takes care of all the data privacy and cybersecurity, which we do need to deliver because of our eventual customers, the investment required on our part would be significantly would be some kind of multiple of all of our development time. It would extend the development timeline, and so we felt there was really no alternative but to use building blocks from a company that not only has it already, but will then continue to maintain it, as Daniel describes, in the future as these requirements keep changing.
Okay, so it's important to understand that the challenges of connected care are not limited only to connectivity, cybersecurity, and privacy regulations, as we just spoke about. These are all first-order challenges which you must address before even starting to consider remote or home care. However, once you address those, it doesn't really guarantee that your solution will be successful, especially in remote or home care scenarios. If you don't take into account the criticality of adherence, for example, which is a major issue, there are little chances that you will actually succeed. The reason goes back to what I described in the beginning, where normally you don't have the assistance of a professional person at home to help with the treatment. And without proper tools, patients might not adhere to the treatment due to the reasons such as complexity of the treatment, the effect of the treatment on the patient itself, or other causes which affect the adherence, such as even battery level of the device, patient tendency to forget, etc. In order to cope with adherence challenge, a connected care platform must provide tools to improve adherence, starting from basic modules such as reminders to take the medicine or to activate the device, and moving towards more sophisticated mechanisms like adaptive questionnaires to understand the status of the patient and the effectiveness of the treatment, and eventually up to modules such as adherence prediction by learning the behavioral trends and act accordingly.
Okay. And now, Ian, how does OmniSense tackle the problem of patient adherence?
Well, at OmniSense, we support a number of different modes of use, including simply enhancing the current telemedicine/video call type services, and also frequent monitoring of high-risk, expensive patients and consumer-centric systems. So in the monitoring scenario that you mentioned, such as what we're planning here with a health provider in Israel that wishes to track its chronic at-home patients, those patients will take a daily reading. Then all the data collected, vitals, ECG, respiratory information, during those 30 seconds is uploaded automatically to the cloud. Then our algorithms run to analyze it and issue alerts. In terms of adherence, our thinking is to use pre-existing building blocks from OmniSense because adherence is a general problem, not something specific to our solution.
Thanks, Ian. So the last major challenge to point out is that having more and more sensors at the patient side does not necessarily mean that you will get the right outcome of improving patient conditions. The reason is that once you start collecting data from many sensors and many patients, it becomes very hard to identify the critical information and act upon it. For example, it's not really helpful at all to look at a single or even multiple blood pressure measurements if you can't accompany this info with understanding of the pre-situation of the patient. So for example, was he running before taking the measurements? Was he upset? Did he smoke? Did he follow the protocols? What are his normal readings? And so on. The ability to correlate info in parallel from multiple sensors and enrich them with additional key data coming from both the patient itself, from the caregiver systems, and from algorithms that are running and analyzing the mass data collection that is being gathered from the sensors. These are what's really critical and important in order to eventually have actionable insights and take immediate interventions.
Okay, and now, Ian, how do you perform the monitoring, collecting, and analyzing of the data of your patients?
Okay, I'll get into it when we present a little further, but basically we collect the data during their use of our device, which is basically like a thermometer, and then it is transmitted automatically without them taking any action. It's seamless, and then it goes to the cloud, and within the cloud we have algorithms which process it and analyze it to make it available for a portal or for automatic alerts?
Okay. And Daniel, did you have anything to add to that?
No, we can move on.
Okay. All right. Now we have, I think it's our next poll. And I'll share this with the audience, but just announcing the question: do you plan to implement medical device-based remote care solutions? And we'll wait a few seconds, wait some time for the audience to have a chance to respond to that. And just as a reminder to the audience that a recording of this webinar will be provided in the next, shortly. And now, and the panelists will respond to questions that you've proffered to the panelists in the last sort of 10 to 15 minutes of the webinar. So just as a reminder, please, if you have any questions of the panelists, please share them in the bottom left-hand part of your screen. And I think we have our results. Jack, what do you make of the results?
Yeah, it sounds like they came to the right place. These are people who want to find the right solution, and we are certainly here to help them. So that's a good result.
That's great. Okay. Now, so Daniel, after we discussed the main challenges companies need to consider before developing connected care solutions, representatives from medical device companies, clinics, hospitals, pharma companies, can you tell us what solutions BioTE offers to these companies?
Yeah, sure. So basically, the key challenges we refer to eventually is what we at BioTE are trying to address with what we call our CCC Connected Care Platform. We are providing an off-the-shelf SaaS solution which enables to securely connect medical devices to a regulated cloud environment with a plethora of features around patient monitoring, engagement, and patient care. The BioTE platform basically supports multiple use cases across different care areas, such as remote device management, remote patient monitoring, patient adherence, device and drug efficacy, proper and safe use, RPM, and much more. Unfortunately, each of these topics we can talk about more than 1 hour, and we don't have the time to expand on them in this session. But of course, right after, we'll be happy to address each and every of those with you guys. So basically, how does it work? What actually we do? BioTE is an open development framework that enables to easily connect medical devices via our software development kits and application program interfaces to the BioTE Connected Care backend, where we actually seamlessly utilize and run any algorithm. Moreover, it enables you to easily modify almost any of the system workflows and parameters via our BioTE console and the manufacturer and clinician portals and our sample applications So you can actually build a connected care solution in less than a month. In addition, the BioT software, it runs actually on your cloud account and provides you as the customer full control on the data. So not only that we provide basically an off-the-shelf connected care platform, which reduces dramatically the time to market and cuts significantly the costs, and maybe Ian can talk about it later on, we also offload the security and privacy liabilities related to data transfer and storage, and by that, reducing the risks and exposures. Normally, we are signing on BAA and DPA agreements with our customers. And then later on, we also save up to 80% of the time and cost to get to market and up to 5 times of the ongoing operational costs. So basically, at the end of the day, it enables you to transform any medical device into a compliant connected care solution in less than a month, versus normally if you had to build it on your own and develop it on yourself, normally it's around 1.5 years and even more. So just to summarize, the BioT Connected Care platform provides medical-grade connectivity solution based on built-in standard protocols and APIs. We fully offload from you the compliance and regulatory barriers with respect to privacy and security of data transfer, processing, and storage, with efficient, personalized patient engagement tools, which eventually enable to transform data received from the patient into actionable insights by the caregivers. And basically, this is in a nutshell what we do. So without further ado, I'm giving the stage to Ian to share with you a bit more about what they did. Again, I guess it will give you a very good understanding and a clear view on what we actually provided to them.
Thank you, Daniel. So I'll give a few minutes about Omnisense here and tell you what we're doing. Basically, as Jack said earlier, usability is really the key, or one of the main keys to implementing telehealth systems. We have a platform comprising a number of components, device, app, backend, all of it on top of BioT's platform. For the device, what we have done is looked at the one medical device which is present essentially in all homes, which is the thermometer. So in terms of usability, people are going to know what it is, they're familiar with it, they'll know how to use it, and this is what we're seeing. And from there, the communication is transparent all the way up to the cloud. So I'll go through the elements of the system here. Starting with the device. This device, of which we currently have our first model, the minimum viable product. You hold it in your mouth like a thermometer. The tip has a temperature sensor in it. You take your temperature as usual, hold it in there for 30 seconds. You'll also notice further along the neck a microphone which listens to the respiratory sounds from within the closed mouth. The holding positions along the body provide both for ECG contact and also for pulse oximeter. All of which means that what we're giving in one 30-second reading is we're reading, obviously, temperature, but we're also getting your pulse rate, your respiratory rate, your blood oxygenation, ECG, and also a bit like a stethoscope, we're listening to your respiratory sounds. Future models will add additional facilities, all within that same envelope and shape. In terms of the way it's used and the way we see it being used, the users will simply take their temperature the way they've always done. But what happens is that during those 30 seconds, we're not just getting temperature, but we're getting vitals, respiratory information, cardiovascular information, and uploading that into the cloud. In the cloud, the measurements arrive, we store them, we have their trends, and as each measurement arrives, we run algorithms. We have two main algorithms, a cardiac algorithm and a respiratory algorithm. The cardiac algorithm derives all sorts of interesting parameters like ST segment, PR interval, and so we can graph those as well and see their trends. And the respiratory algorithm is looking at adventitious sounds like crackles and wheezes, so we can see the trend there. So that when a physician looks at the portal, he gets a very detailed view, which is pretty much equivalent to a face-to-face meeting with a patient. In some cases, it's better because you can see a trend where, of course, in an individual appointment, you can't see the trend. We'll shortly be adding adherence monitoring also. For that, we plan to use the pre-existing building block from BioT. The analytics and alerts will be built specifically with each healthcare organization that we work with. And the algorithms are running in the cloud on top of the platform. And in terms of telemedicine use, then a physician, who you see here at bottom right, in general, he just has a video call, but here in our case, he can press on our button and get access to this portal. And in the portal, he can listen to the respiratory sounds today, last week, compare, look at the ECG and the vitals, and click on either of those to go in to drill down and see what the trend was. And so that's basically the platform that we've built here. And we believe that it's something which is usable at both ends. In other words, it has high usability for the remote physicians, and it also has very high reusability and an integrated nature for the patients who don't have to deal with lots of different sensors. They simply have one device they're familiar with, and that does everything for them. So thanks.
Ian, thank you for that presentation. And now we're going to shift over to we have some questions from the audience. We do have an awful lot of questions. We probably won't be able to cover them all, but we'll provide the contact information after the webinar. And so first off, is a question for you, Daniel. What exactly is the meaning of patient engagement, of the patient engagement solution, and could you give some examples?
Yeah, it's a great question. So basically, I'll give you an example of one of our other customers named Theranica. They are doing a therapeutic device for migraine, and they have a patch that is located on the arm that sends electric shocks to stimulate the brain and overcome the migraine. And basically, they have an app that is connected to this device and is connected to the cloud, and they can engage with the patient directly and ask him questions after a migraine attack happened, 2 hours after, 12 hours after, 24 hours after, and ask questions like, okay, where you've been before, how do you feel, what is the pain level, and many different questions which are adaptive that can be discussed directly with the patient and get a better understanding of his condition. So when we are talking on patient engagement, for example, the questionnaire part is one of the key elements to engage with them and basically interact. And we have some other mechanisms as well, like a chat and messaging capabilities. So this is what we mean about patient engagement.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, we also have another question. I'm not sure who wants to take this, but I'll just put it to the panel in general. Can either product connect with medical management software such as ME Decision or CaseNet TrueCare?
Yeah, so I'll start from my side. And basically, if you look back to the development framework to build your own solution with BioT, then you can see that there are several APIs that are presented here. Basically, the entire system of BioT is open with APIs that enables data to be shared both from the BioT platform to other systems and also enrich data from other systems into BioT. And we did a lot of integration with clinical trial systems and BI systems and patient record system. So basically the answer is, of course, yes. This is an open platform, and you can integrate with any other open platform that exists.
Okay, thank you for that. We also have a question. Is embedded machine learning employed by BioTE to make sense of the data?
Great question. Basically, the answer is, of course, yes, but it's more than that. We actually enable to our, the way that our platform is structured, to any third partner to add his own algorithms and data sets into the system in order to process the data and apply machine learning. I'll give, again, some examples. Instead of running the algorithms and learn different behaviors on the front-end side, on the device itself, you actually collect all the data and run it centralized manner, and you can actually define different sets up front and run on them different machine learning algorithms for detecting biomarkers and doing many other things. And basically, many of our customers are actually running their own algorithms on top of the BioTE platform, depending on what exactly they are targeting and tackling from the medical perspective.
Okay. Okay, here's another question. And also, just as another housekeeping note, for any questions we don't get to, we can send, the panelists can send answers later via email. So just in case you've asked a question that doesn't get addressed, it's not because it's not interesting. It's just a time thing, and the panelists will respond. I think, Daniel, I think there's another question for you. Do you also support novel technology that is in a stage of observatory clinical studies? A novel device for cardiovascular disease that needs to pass the FDA approval? Is there a way to discuss future collaborations even at that stage?
Sure. Many of our customers also start in very early stages of even preclinical studies, normally they need the connectivity capabilities also at that stages if they want to be more efficient. So definitely you can start with even 5 devices connected, and we have special programs for startups and early stage devices or companies to start utilizing our platform and then grow, with it as they continue in their journey. So no problems at all.
Okay. Here's a question for Ian. Is the OmniSense medical device FDA approved, or does it have a CE mark, and where is it marketed at this stage, in the EU or other countries beyond that?
We're shortly going to submit our FDA submissions later this year. We're not planning market entry till about the middle of 2022. So that doesn't mean that we can't run trials, but they need to be approved by the IRB of the medical provider that we're working with. So it's not on the open market yet. We're starting to have discussions with various strategic partners about entry together with them.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ian, just I guess we have another question for OmniSense. Why an oral thermometer application rather than contactless temperature, which has become very commonplace during COVID screening?
Well, contactless is great for screening, but if you want to, let's say, monitor the actual body temperature of, let's say, an elderly person, where every 1/10 of a degree can be significant, and you want to see that trend, you won't see it on a contactless approach, and you need to actually take oral temperature reading under the tongue. So for the audiences that we're addressing, which is chronic patients, elderly people. There we need actually a very accurate temperature reading, and we need to be able to track whether it's going up each day by a tenth of a degree, down each day by a tenth of a degree. So that's not achievable with non-contact technologies.
Okay. And just another question, Ian. How do you envisage your ongoing use of the BioT platform, and what will be the savings in terms of your future development?
Yeah, we envisage ongoing use of it because that's really what takes care for us of all the device-to-cloud infrastructure issues such as security. And if we were to not use a platform like this, we would have to build up our own team just working on this, and they would also then have to continually maintain it.
Okay. And maybe just a follow-up to that, how much time and cost did you save working with BioT?
Well, we simply didn't set up this additional team, but without a doubt, it would certainly have been in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I also don't doubt that it would have extended our timeline had we not done it.
Sure. Okay. And just one question for Jack. From your perspective, in your role, what's unique about BioT? What stands out about it?
Yeah, it's a good question, Stephanie. I've been I've become familiar with BioT for the last 2 years, and the thing is that everybody can say they can save you time and money, and yeah, we can obviously cut down probably your time to market by 80%. But the unique drag and drop customizable portal, the user interface, as well as the template apps, SDK, and let you go live in days rather than weeks or months. That's a key differentiator. Another key advantage is de-risking your project with our built-in world-class security as part of the platform. In my previous company, I was the CSO, which is the Chief Security Officer, and I learned that in the world today, you only need to be compromised once. Very difficult to recover from that, especially if you're a startup.
Okay, well said. Now I think that's all the time we have. As we said before, for any questions the panelists weren't able to get to, they will respond via email sometime in the next few weeks or so. And also, as a reminder, you can access this webinar at a later date. Just to summarize what we heard, remote care is at risk as the adoption barriers for medical device ecosystem are very high, and there are many challenges and obstacles to overcome. The key is to use a ready-made Internet of Medical Things platform that minimizes the risk and maximizes remote care potential. BioT's white paper to build or to buy a medical-grade Internet of Things platform, that is the question, will be sent out via email and is in the chat, so you can learn more. I want to thank BioT for sponsoring this webinar, and thank Ian and Daniel and Jack for their participation in OmniSense. And thank you, of course, to the audience for taking part and engaging with our polls and your great questions. And thank you again, and this has been Stephanie Baum, the Director of Special Projects with MedCity News, and have a great day.